Well, this letter basically says, Mr. Gilbert, my client, your accounts at UBS are guaranteed and insured for their full market value at UBS. What he did was he acted as if I sent this letter to him, and then what he would do is add his client's name, and he forwarded it to all of his investors. All of his investors that had lost money, that he had paid back with other people's money, when they grew scared what was happening with their portfolio, he would send him this letter as if I had sent it to him, and he would forward it to them, that their assets are insured at UBS, and he forged my name. Well, clearly that's not my signature. And I'll tell you, when management knew that it wasn't my signature, I kind of thought I had gotten away with it. And I put everything on my client. What had he done? He needs to be held accountable. He's a crook. He's a liar. He's a thief. He forged my name. We have got to stop doing business with this guy. I'm trying to take credit as if I'm turning him in, trying to flip it as best I can. I figured I had an out when I saw that he had forged my name. I thought that was my opportunity, my chance. Well, it wasn't my opportunity. It wasn't my chance. And right about the time that this is taking place, my senior business partner, a light went off above him. My senior business partner realized that this could go very bad. And he got a lawyer. That's what all of you should do if you ever get called in by corporate counsel. Anything like this takes place, you got a lawyer. You find the money, you get the money, get your own lawyer. He got his own lawyer. UBS asked me if I wanted a lawyer for the debriefing the next day, and I asked my branch manager, should I? And he said, maybe getting a lawyer makes you look guilty. I said, you're right, I don't need a lawyer. I'm not dumb. My mom's been a paralegal for 30 years. Of course I knew I should get a lawyer, but I'll tell you why I didn't. I knew if I got a lawyer, it would take a month before I ever interviewed with UBS. I'd have to hire a lawyer, give him money, go through the debriefing, tell him what I kind of knew, what I thought I knew, what I should have done. I had gotten away with everything for so long with UBS backing me. They encouraged everything that I did. I didn't have the patience, discipline, or wisdom to wait a month. I said, I'll come in tomorrow and talk, no problem. UBS is on my side. I'm not waiting a month. So the next day I went in for 11 hours. I met with corporate counsel. Told them all I knew about the hedge fund. Told them everything. Well, UBS didn't care for the answers that I gave because on that same day they told me not to come back into the office until the deposition, until the investigation had concluded. And I said, well, what about Kenny? And they said, don't worry about Kenny. We're going to take care of him. I said, fine. That night, Kenny called me and said, everything is going to be just fine. I spoke to UBS. Sit tight. Just sit tight. I'll be in touch. I said, great, Kenny. I need your senior partnership, your mentor, your guidance more than ever. Please, help me. Please, UBS told me not to come in. Well, over the next 3 weeks, Kenny, he did call me. And so did my client. Little did I know that when they were calling, they were cooperating or had begun to cooperate with federal authorities. Keith's now working with the FBI and the Securities and Exchange Commission. He ran to them. He knew it was up. He knew it was up. He wanted to cut a deal, and they were willing to listen. Kenny, my senior business partner, he knew what was coming. He's not stupid. He owned it a little better than me. He too is cooperating with UBS and others, inoculating himself from any and all prosecution that could follow, all contributing to my demise, calling me, and I'm implicating myself again and again and again. Then the lawsuits start to come. And I assumed, foolishly, that UBS would protect me because UBS knew. Well, UBS is now painting me out as a rogue employee, someone who acted alone. And they weren't defending me. $10,000 to a lawyer, $50,000 to a lawyer, $100,000. By the time I surrendered to prison, I wrote checks totaling more than $400,000 to lawyers. I was their best client. Just sit back and let me talk for 6 hours at $500 an hour. I was a lawyer's dream. And while I'm lying to lawyers and others are cooperating, I decided to have a conversation with federal authorities, the FBI. The FBI showed up in my home April 2005, about 4 months after I was fired. FBI walks in. I was very dismissive of them, rude with them, bitching about UBS and the fact that I was fired, and I didn't appreciate them being in my home. And the FBI says, Justin, we'd like to talk to you. Do you have some time? Do you need a lawyer? I said, I don't need no lawyer. Let's talk. What do you want to know? Let's talk. Whatever. It's fine. I didn't care then much either. And the first thing the FBI shows me is that JetBlue email that I sent to my client. They put it out in front of me. And I said to the agent, Agent Bertrand, I said, so what? They said, well, tell you what, Justin. On top of the email that I forwarded to my client that he'd get 25,000 shares at JetBlue IPO, they put the email that he forwarded to his 100 prospects that said, hello, Mr. Prospect. Look at this email below from my broker at UBS. I'm due to receive 25,000 shares of JetBlue tomorrow. If you give me your portfolio, turn over some of your money, I'll allocate you 5,000 shares. It's due to be up 5 points at the open. The first day that you're a client of mine, you'll make $25,000. 15 people invested because of that. An email that I thought about a year and a half earlier because I was afraid to say no to my client. I had to keep my numbers up. I was afraid to disappoint my senior business partner. Something I thought about for 6 seconds turned out to losses for 15 investors because, of course, they lost all their money once they invested. And once again, I said to the FBI agents, it's just an email. What he did with that, I don't understand it. It's just an email. Everyone sends emails. It's just an email. Then they flipped through some more emails. More and more and more and more, and they showed me more and more and more and more, and I said, oh no. Because you may do one thing. One thing doesn't send you to prison, but it's the collection. It's the sum of the parts that sends you away. And I started to see some of these emails, some of these favors I had done for my client along the way. And then they asked me about the press release and if I'd ever seen it. Talking about 27% a year. And you know what? I knew what the right answer was. I wanted to tell them, yes, I had. But I was in such denial. I mean, I was in such denial. I wasn't even in denial. I was in such denial I didn't want to own it. And sometimes when you're in denial, you'll still lie. You'll still make the wrong choice because at that moment it makes you feel better. It provides a little bit of solace for that moment. So I told the FBI that, no, I never saw a press release. I never saw it. Then, of course, they pulled out a document confirming that I had seen the 27% press release. Then the FBI agents now told me not only was I under investigation for securities fraud, I was under investigation for perjury. Can't lie to FBI agents. Well, not only did I commit securities fraud and now perjury, I made the terrible mistake of bringing my best friend into my case. Imagine, picture for a moment your best friend in the world. And when I was at UBS, I was in constant dispute with my business partner over commissions. I always wanted a raise. He never gave me a raise. I worked 100 hours a week. He never appreciated, applauded my efforts. I hated that. Imagine working 100 hours a week and no one says thank you. Maybe work alone should be significant. Maybe your paycheck should be enough. You know what? For me, it wasn't, man. I wanted my partner to say, I appreciate you working and getting fatter and losing your girlfriend and drinking and smoking to produce. I think that's worth an appreciation. I really do. I never got it, and I hated that. I despised it. So because my senior business partner wouldn't give me a raise, my client, the hedge fund manager, found a way to leverage off that. And my client one time called me and said, you know what? I don't think Kenny's entitled to as much commissions as you. Kenny was my partner. Why don't you find a friend? Why don't you let me put a friend of yours on the payroll? And we'll say that he's a relationship manager, that I've hired him to raise money. And some of the commissions that I'm due to do with you at UBS, where Kenny gets a good portion of it, I'm just going to run those trades. I'm going to run that check through your friend. Find someone. So I came home one day and I told my best friend that I have a fail-proof plan in order for both of us to get paid. I guarantee you, say that you're an employee of this firm, I'm going to come home in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a $15,000, $20,000 check for you. And my best friend said, you know what, I'm uncomfortable taking this money. I haven't earned it. Why are you going to bring me home a check? And I told him about my relationship with Kenny. I told him that I was entitled to more commissions. He wouldn't give it to me. This is a way for me to get even. I had convinced myself I was owed money from my senior business partner. I convinced myself, and I told my friend Chris, we'll split it. Now, my friend Chris was a professional baseball player who had just been released by the Twins, and he was living with me rent-free for a while. Prior to that, when he needed money, I gave it to him. When he wanted to take a beautiful woman out to dinner, I gave him money. He was just released from professional baseball, broke. You don't make anything in the minor leagues. He didn't want to do it, but I leveraged off our friendship. I leveraged off my previous generosities to entice him to take those checks. I leveraged off him the same way my client did me, my best friend. So I came home the first time with a $20,000 check, and he said, man, I haven't earned it. I don't want it. I won't deposit it. I haven't earned it. I said, we'll split it. We'll split it. You take 10, I take 10. What do you think? Well, it's very tough to say no when the cash is in your hand. That money is so close. And you had had nothing for so long. The question is, would you take it? Would you do that for a friend? If he had convinced you that you owed it to him, that it wasn't that big a deal? Well, my client or my friend said, okay, I'll do it. He cashed the check. I gave him 10 grand. The next week, another 10,000. I gave him 5. 15, I gave him 7. Sometimes a check were 10. I said, keep the whole 10. I don't care. It makes you feel good to keep it. It was so much money in a time. My friend, too, was very virtuous and ethical, grew addicted to the money as well. He liked it. And ultimately, the FBI wants to talk to him, too. He was technically on the payroll of my client. So the FBI showed up again at my home. I said, what do you want to talk about now? They said, no, we're here to talk to Chris.